when Americans specifically buy their dream house, right? Everybody's so excited. They're newly married. They get to buy their dream house and they start, I have to see where I'm at here. They start over here, right? And the banks are like, thank you so much. We're so excited for you. Congratulations on your brand new house. We are not aware of, as Americans, is that when we start this journey, the banks take us on this long, winding route that takes 30 long years to pay off this mortgage. And the reason that they do that, they're going to say, well, that keeps your payment down, which the other reality of that is the longer they can keep you in debt and owing them, the more money they are collecting. Interest is the most profitable product on the planet. By the time we're done, we're paying $463,000 in interest. Our $400,000 house is over $800,000. Math does not math on this point.
Welcome to Unlocking Commerce and Business. I'm Connie Davis. Like a lighthouse cutting through fog, this marketplace of voices illuminates where commerce systems break down and what's already working to repair them. We go deep into communities, exploring where pain hides behind financial systems, uncovering extraction patterns in relationships, blocks in money movement, and barriers creating economic instability for vulnerable populations. From survivors of economic abuse to system innovators, these conversations don't just diagnose, they point toward trauma-informed, human-centered solutions. Essential listening for collaborators, partners, funders, and changemakers building regenerative alternatives. Welcome to the era of restorative commerce. Now let's get into today's conversation. All right. Well, welcome back. I'm really excited today for this conversation, everyone. I have had some tremendous conversations for those of you that have been listening in, and thank you for continuing to do that. Today, I'm here with Andy Bennetts, and Andy is someone that aligns with my former life as a TradFi expert and a payments person. So we get to geek out on all sorts of things today. But first, Andy, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Connie. I'm super excited. I've been looking forward to our conversation. We had such a great introductory conversation that I knew that we were going to have a fun time kind of diving into some things that I don't often get to talk about. So I'm looking forward to the questions that you have for me.
Me too. And for the audience that's listening, Andy, I know you have this really cool gadget and I can't wait to see you put it in action. So for everybody that's listening on YouTube, we're going to catch this video on YouTube. We're going to get to see you draw some things in real life that we get to talk about for some of the math parts of what you do. But I really look forward to you kind of geeking out with that tool. I'm a whiteboarder, so I love whiteboarding. Right. And I wish I had every room in my house was a whiteboard. I really do, because I'd be going around squiggling all day. So, but first and foremost, tell us a little bit about you and your mission and, how you got into this work that you're doing and what you're doing today.
Yeah. Yep. So I am born and raised in Colorado, not Denver. Most people think of Denver as being kind of I guess it is the center of Colorado, but it is on the other side of the mountains, a good 7 hours away from me. So I'm actually closer to like Phoenix and parts of California than I am Denver. So it's just kind of a weird, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You spoke of the cool board. So I'm drawing a little T right here. So the mountains are here. And then Denver's over there. I live right there. So we've got New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and then Colorado's right here. So I'm actually closer to some places in Arizona and New Mexico than I am Denver. That's got to go all the way across the mountains to get up there. So just a little way to kind of show off that a little bit. But yeah, born and raised in a very small town. I knew very early on that I wanted to be a teacher. I pursued that, was a teacher and administrator in my little hometown here. Thought that's what I would still be doing at this point. God had different plans. I went the technology route, and I'm still working with schools and organizations on technology. However, the reason that I'm here talking to you today is a few years ago, I was introduced to this amazing technology around finances. I've always been a budgeter. I thought budgeting was the coolest thing. I'm a geek and I have like a hat of a budgeting app. Like that's the kind of level of like ridiculousness that I have about budgeting. And when I saw this new financial GPS, it was like just the scales fell off my eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that I've been missing. Budgeting is great for now and in the past, but I live in the future, right? I need to know what my choices are today and how that's going to impact the future. And so when I saw that it was life changing, it completely changed the course of what I want to do in the future, what I want to share with people, the education that I want to provide people. So that is currently where you find me, is just completely on fire and passionate about sharing financial literacy, financial education, and helping people that are in debt and wanting to get out of debt faster and having hope that they're not going to live the rest of their life buried in debt. We've got a great way to do that. So that's kind of where you find me right now.
That's amazing, Andy, and thank you for the work that you do because, a lot of it, I think as we uncovered in our pre-interview, the GPS is what I think we had some synergy around, and I do
Yeah.
a lot of work with emotions,
Hmm.
family, crypto, and commerce, and
Yeah.
that is a very emotional period of
Hmm.
anything with anybody touching the money because it's an extension
Yep.
of ourselves. Emotions come into the play, and those are our signals that, hey, something's out of balance, whether it's a
Mm.
relationship or my relationship with money can even be out
Yes.
of balance. And I know, you really talk about a lot of empowering the American family.
Hmm.
And the American family has been under attack for so many different
Yep.
angles, whether it's, just from all of the intersections of the conversations that we can have at the
Hmm.
dinner table, the kids and their parents and the what defines a family, all of those things. But it comes down to, how do we as a family sustain and survive when all of the money systems and all of the money things that we do, the belief systems,
Right.
systems, the structure, the infrastructure is changing around us. So tell me a little bit about how your approach to this unique way of this financial GPS has really kind of unveiled this path for you. Because I'm really interested to see how it really morphed into this, kind of purpose driven path. Because I feel that in
Mm.
your heart when you
Yeah.
talk about things, and the way that you bring that into the family kind of conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me, and I'll paint a picture with my words, but I'm also going to use my fancy little board here just because it helps to
Yeah.
kind of explain the situation a little bit better. Um, so when Americans specifically buy their dream house, right? Everybody's so excited. They're newly married. They get to buy their dream house and they start. I have to see where I'm at here. They start over here, right? And the banks are like, thank you so much. We're so excited for you. Congratulations on your brand new house, right? We're just excited at that point. We can't wait to get in. What we are not aware of as Americans is that when we start this journey, the banks take us on this long, winding route that takes 30 long years to pay off this mortgage. And the reason that they do that, they're going to say, well, that keeps your payment down, which it's true. It does keep your payment down. However, the other reality of that is the longer they can keep you in debt and owing them, the more money they are collecting. Interest is the most profitable product on the planet. That one is worth repeating. Interest is the most profitable product on the planet. People think that, okay, 6%, right? If I had a 6% loan, surely I wouldn't be paying much more than, if you had a $400,000 loan, $400,000, 6%, we're looking, 450 or something like that over 30 years. The reality is if we take this 30-year loan, by the time we're done, we're paying $463,000 in interest. So our $400,000 house is over $800,000. That's nowhere close to 6%. That we talked about right before we started, right? The math does not math on this point. 6% is not $863,000 total here. The other thing that just is an unfortunate reality, and again, I think it all comes back to education, right? We have to pull the curtain back, as it were, to show, like, here's the reality of what you're signing when you sign your name on the dotted line, right? We're so excited about this dream house, but we would think, okay, about halfway, that's when I should be paying more in interest than I am in, I'm sorry, more to principal than interest. But the reality is that for a lot of loans, it's about 21 years in. So for 21 years, you are paying more to your interest than you are to your principal. So this reality is just not ever discussed, ever talked about in the American family, because the bankers run the system. They have their own interests. They're not bad people necessarily, but the system itself is not built for our benefit. It is built for profit, and they are really, really good at it. So I am on a mission to help Americans know that this is the way that it's going to be if you don't have a better plan, right? What if we could do this a shortcut, right? What is the fastest way between two lines? It's a straight line, right? The straight line between start to finish is a straight line. So what if we could do this in 5 to 7 years, saving? So for my use case, $150,000 in 15 years. That was my use case. I've spoken with many people that had over $200,000 saved and 20 years off of their mortgage. So it totally depends on specific numbers, but the reality is that this false narrative that to own a home, you have to be in debt for 30 years and that is just going to be your reality. It's untrue. And we are trying to shine a light on that. I'm not sure if I answered your question directly, but I wanted to just kind of highlight kind of the big picture as to why I'm so passionate about this.
And your passion is so important, Andy, because that type of thought leadership, and I say just breaking it down to the basics, is why I believe we have not a financial illiteracy problem, a confidence problem. And I've said that, really emphatically, is that when we don't talk about the numbers, right? The closing documents. It doesn't matter now if I'm doing a buy now, pay later type of transaction, or I'm buying a car, or I'm buying a cell phone. They all have that interest piece in the documents that you're signing when you're buying something on a line of credit. And so what I don't know that individuals understand, especially in the vulnerable communities where I've spent the last 5 years serving, is there's a cognitive awareness that is missing that erodes their confidence to what they're trying to do, to acquire. And you're trying to acquire something so that you get the feeling, right? The thing that you want to feel, that when you acquire that house or the car, or you feel that sense of accomplishment. But what you're describing is debt is eroding that.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. I cannot tell you how many times the initial conversation I have with people, there's doubt. I think we're all cynics, especially Americans. Just everyone has their guard up until such time that you can really connect with them on a personal level, which is something I really try to do. But we are cynical people, and but you're so right. People make decisions on emotions rather than logic, right? So, I mean, to throw numbers at people all day long and saying, hey, here's what you're going to pay, that's good and it's true, but we have to connect it at a heart level with folks. And where I was going with that is so many of my conversations start with this attitude of hopelessness. Like, I have resigned to the fact that I will be in debt the rest of my life. That is what mom and dad did. That is what I'm going to do. Probably what my kids are going to do. And they are just living in this sad, unfortunate reality in their mind. And that's where it's at. It's in their mind. It's not true to the world if they looked at different options, but they've just resigned to the fact that this is my reality. And so and I think that's probably why I'm so passionate about this, is because I do care for people, and I've always had a teacher's heart. It's like, no, you don't have to live like that. Let me show you a better way. And then it's up to them to choose to do that. That's another thing that I talk about in my conversations and workshops is knowledge is not power. Application of knowledge is power, right? We can show people the better way to do things. If they don't pick up the tool and actually do the work and put in the work, it's not going to do anything. But you are so right. It's so much of it starts in the heart and allowing yourself to believe that there's a better future. That's where it all starts.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because when we use the just 3 letters, GPS, global positioning system is the way I look at it. But global means me in my own world. How am I positioning myself inside of the system that I'm navigating in? And so that's why I say emotions are a signal. It's a cue into where am I positioned in my inner world so that I can go and navigate my outer world much better, right? So that I don't have all these gaps. And it's really important when we start talking about the name of the show. So the name of the show is Unlocking Commerce in Business. And everything is an exchange of value in commerce. People exchange their value, they get compensated for that value. based on the time and the knowledge that they've acquired.
Yeah.
So to me, that's where we've lost the spirit of commerce. But
Hmm.
let's talk about how, and you get into this with your clients, how doing everything right that they think that they're doing, the credit reporting thing, the job,
Right.
the buy the house, the whole, shiny box of everything that you're supposed to pull out of the box, still leads to this unnecessary struggle. Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah. And I think really where it all starts is, again, it's, I often, and I don't know if I ever say this with clients, but I mean, this is kind of what's going on in my head. Like, I need folks to suspend their current belief and allow the possibility that there might be a different route, right? I mean, if you are so locked in of like, this is the way it is, you what's the horse? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Like, I could have the best thing in the world for X, Y, and Z, but if they're so convinced that the only thing to do is A, B, and C, I can't really help them, right? So a lot of this starts with open-mindedness and this kind of stuff. So, um, I just want to make sure that we get the empowerment aspect of this, because obviously the word empowerment is very, very important to me. Um, I think financial clarity restores confidence for people, and I wanted to comment on that because I think that is aligned with where you're trying to go with this of commerce being an empowerment aspect of things. Is if you don't have clarity as to where you're going, you're just kind of wandering about. And the reality is, back to your question, the system is not, and again, this sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but it's just the reality. The system is not built to benefit consumers. It's just not, right? The bankers have been doing this far longer than we have, legal documents out the wazoo. They've got legal protection out the wazoo. So they are insulated and have this whole thing dialed in to an absolute art form that because we want to be compliant and we want the house, right? We want that. So we will go through whatever steps we need to do to get that house. And we're just signing papers left and right, to your point, not paying attention to what we are actually signing, right? There's this nasty thing called the total interest percentage that people just skip right over. It's in your documents, right? We focus on the APR, the annual percentage rate, but it actually says in your loan disclosure, this is not your interest payment, right? That's just your annual percentage rate. So there's just so much to dive into this, but I think the reality is that we need to open our minds to the fact that the system is rigged to not benefit us. So now we need to educate ourselves and do things in a smarter way, in a more efficient way that is benefiting us. And that's really kind of why I like this GPS aspect. Is imagine all of the banking strategies that they use to make billions of dollars leveraged and used for your benefit. That's what this does. That's what this does.
So you're talking about giving them a financial positioning system that they can then lean on. And that's where I know that we intersected and had so much in
Yeah.
common, because I talk about the emotional awareness of it,
Hmm.
and we have to deal with that in vulnerable communities because they're coming in for help. They're coming into the
Hmm.
community nonprofits and
Right.
the churches and the places saying, I am just at rock bottom and I need some support. And the
Yeah.
community wraps their arms around them and gives them a hug and says, we're going to do this together. And you're
I love
doing that in a similar way with this GPS system. And I
it.
think that there are so many individuals like you, Andy. I have friends that are in the same space. I had a cohort of micro podcasters on my show, and
Mhm.
Danielle was one of the voices that talks about this, from the housewife and the mom and the, just
Mhm.
running the
Right.
household. There's these
Yeah.
unsung powerhouses out there like you that are talking about this importance of financial clarity. So
Right.
let's talk about your perception on and how you advocate for this leading to stronger marriages, reduce stress, and that peace on the inside. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Love to. So I do some in-person workshops. We're working on kind of modifying a little bit to virtual, but one of the first stats that I share, and this is not news to anybody that has paid attention to finances, but um, it's either the one or two, depending on which stats you're reading. The reason for divorce is financial stress, right? It is the stress around finances, and then the anxiety about this. And I mean, I don't remember the stats off the top of my head for suicide, but it's right up there, right? There are financial woes, and financial stress is in the top three of every, divorce, suicide, all of these things that are just kind of a plague of our society. So to your point, if we could have clarity, right? If we could have clarity on where we're going, where we're at. Okay. Again, we always use the GPS analogy because it fits and it's something that everybody understands, right? Where are you now? What are your debts? What are your payments? What are your bills, right? This is your current state. Okay. Where do we want to go? We want to be debt free. And hey, along the way, which is another really cool thing it can do. By the way, we also want to go to Disneyland, right? So we can post that in. We want to go through Disneyland, but also get debt free as quickly as we can. System, do your thing, right? So it's going to give us clarity of like exactly what we need to do, where we need to move our money. And the great thing about GPS, it gives you the specific date, right? So I know exactly when I'm going to be debt free because it has told me this, and math is math, right? Math is math. You can't argue with it. It just is what it is. So back to your question about what this can do for marriages. What if you just imagine a reality where rather than reacting to the financial problems that happen in a family, because everybody has them. I'm not standing here saying that everything is perfect in our finances. We've got things that we're working through and working on and this kind of stuff, right? So when life happens, thinking of it like a GPS, what does a GPS do? It reroutes you, says, hey, it was going to be 10.3 years, but because you need a new car, you know what? Now it's going to be 11.1. It's not 15. We can pay this off much faster, but it's going to give you exact down to the day clarity as far as when you're going to arrive there. And it allows you to roll with the punches. So when life happens, when the car breaks down, when you get a bonus, we throw that in there. What's the best way to strategically use this money to get us to where we want to? So as a married man of 21 years, what it's done for us is it eliminates the guesswork, right? Again, budgeting is great for current spending and what we've spent in the past, but it does nothing for what you're doing in the future. So now we couple all of that together with this financial GPS and says, hey, we can afford to do the new car payment because we put $500 down here. It does this to our debt-free date, but you know what? That's great because we need the car. We can afford it. It actually does this great thing where it says, you lose your job. Don't sweat it. You've got, enough built up in your emergency fund, which we always recommend, that you are good for the next 6 months. So find the good fit for your next thing. We got you covered for the next 6 months. So just the amount of peace of mind that this tool provides people is I can't even begin to cover the amount of impact that it has on families just because it takes all of the guesswork out and it gives them very mathematical precision as to what's going on in their finances.
And you're talking about piece of technology, and I love talking about tech, and money movement is hard to follow when you don't have technology that shows, because money's become so invisible, right? It's so invisible, and you tap a card or you tap a phone and you're like, poof, money's moving out of the account. A couple of years ago, I was teaching 8 and 9-year-olds, the history of money for the Great American Teach-In. And I asked them, I said, what is money and where does it come from? And they go, my mom and dad's debit card, but then they hate that, my mom and dad gets really mad when there's fraud on the account and they have no money. And, but then you see, kids in the store tapping their phone going, there's no money on this thing, and I've heard stories where they call their mom, hey mom, can you put more money on there? So they really don't know where it's coming from and how they create it. And that's the commerce piece that I love to talk about is the activation of how do you actually get the money to you for something that you know or did for another person in service or in sales of a product to solve a need. And I think that's an area where we lose a little bit of our sense of purpose because the technology, the digital banking products that, the financial institutions have shows everything on a picture of spending or saving based on what's in the account, what's moving through the account. But you're talking about this bigger picture of the true navigation system.
Right.
That's great.
Right. And again, we've already identified that I'm a former teacher. So I love that you're talking to 8-year-olds about what money is and where it moves and this kind of stuff. I guess to your listeners and this kind of stuff, I just want to double down and kind of confirm some of the things that I'm sure you're already talking about. Education can shift your economic outcome. It just can, right? If you are educated and you put into practice, we've already talked about that. This can change the future of what your future looks like, what your legacy looks like, right? It starts with education and then it starts with application. Another one that's not fun to talk about, but let's be realistic. You have to be disciplined, right? It's not sexy to budget. It's not sexy to save. But you know what? If you can be disciplined and start investing, I do another thing in my workshop talking about the difference between, I think it was like Sarah and Bob, right? Sarah invests just a small amount from like 18 to 28 or something like that, and just lets it sit and does its thing, right? Whereas Bob starts later in life, invests a lot more, does it for a lot longer, but because it doesn't sit before he needs to pull it, Sarah is the one that actually ends up with more money. So this idea of being smart about your money, being disciplined about your money. So anyways, just for those that are listening again, that are feeling like, we're just so far behind. I understand that. Get some clarity, be disciplined, stick to it. It does make a difference, even if it's down the road. Delayed gratification is not fun, but it is worth it.
Yeah, and we need to drill into that because a lot of the organizations in my kind of community, Andy, are in a survival state. So
Mm,
I
yeah,
just aired an episode just before just today. It actually went live about second chance, reentry. So people that have gone away and
hmm,
they've been in prison and they're coming out and they're trying to stabilize their family. So they're in a state of panic and
yeah,
survival. And how am I going to provide for myself? And let alone I have a family
yeah,
and trying to get work, in a community that really doesn't want to see me anymore because of what I did.
yeah.
So that's a tough place to be in.
Hmm.
So, what simple practical shifts in that state of survival would you help a family starting out, maybe reestablishing? What's some of the smallest things that they can do? Because you talked about delayed gratification. And I think that that's an area where there might be some conflict going on between emotions and actual money.
Yeah, I think some very, very practical things that anybody can do, even if you're not, making boatloads of money. Which reality is even people are not making as much money as you think you are. But anyways, that's a different subject. But a practical thing that you could do is automate your savings or automate your investments. Okay, say you've got $1,000 coming in a couple times a month, just for example's sake. Automate even $50. Doesn't seem like a lot, but I promise it will add up. Automate that $50 to go into not a regular savings account. Here's another little freebie. Find a high yield savings account. High yield savings account is going to give you so much more return than just putting it in your local savings account, because on average, the national rate of return for like a normal savings account is like 0.1 or 0.2%. That's not going to keep up with inflation, let alone actually help you out. High yield savings account are between 3 and 4%. That can at least get you a little bit extra each month. So automate that savings into a high yield savings account. Maybe a CD. That's another option. Those monies are tied up for a little bit longer, but that would be good as well. So that would be one. Definitely do that. And then the other one that kind of ties back to the GPS, but it works even for folks that maybe don't invest in the tool, the financial GPS. The concepts are the same. We as Americans tend to round down numbers when we shouldn't. Okay. We do this financial analysis when we talk to folks and we say, okay, what are your bills? What is your income, right? What is your discretionary? I hate that term, but like, what is basically after you've paid everything at the end of the month, what is the money left over, the discretionary income? And people are like, oh, well, it's, I got $10, I got $13, $18, whatever it is. I kid you not. I did this with a close friend of mine, and it started at $18. We shaved some things. Actually, we got it to about $100 a month. In $100 a month, she was able to, using the GPS, go from over 30 years, because she had lots of different debts, into 11 years. Money matters, guys. Even every cent matters if you put it in a strategic way to help you get to your path, wherever that is, right? Debt freedom and this kind of stuff. So don't sleep on those small little increments that you can use in a smarter way. So automatic investment, don't sleep on the pennies that you can invest and use in a strategic way to help you get to where you want to go. I hope that helps.
No, I think those are great tips. And I think it aligns with even investment of time, so people go, where did all my time go? And we
Yeah.
say, stop, spending as much time in things that aren't actually creating some form of an asset for you. And I talk about, because I lean in to the future of money, which is really where, blockchain and technology continues to intersect with the technology that you're using today will eventually evolve into, I'm sure, the future of where we're going to be in 5 years from now. And
Yeah.
it's moving so fast. And we have, tools like AI, and we have tools like the future of mobile banking apps and digital wallets, even that can continue to show us where those assets are going to continue to build. So
Right.
we lean into building assets with our time, our knowledge, our resources, our
Mhm.
social capital. Even we're talking about social capital now as assets that how you and who you spend time with
Yeah.
actually help to curate the type of person that you become in the future.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're talking about is making the most of the assets. Don't sleep on those pennies. So I
Yep.
love that. That's a great phrase.
Yeah. Yep.
What else do you see as trends for the American family? Because you mentioned inflation, and
Mhm.
inflation is a big, dirty word now. How do you empower families against inflation?
Um, so a good friend of mine, a mentor in this new space, this is going to be a roundabout way, but I promise I'll get back to answering your question. We talk about, we're a couple months into the new year, right? So what are everybody's New Year's resolutions in America, right? It's generally, you know, lose weight or get better financially, one way or the other, right? And both of those things are very similar. To lose weight, typically, not saying anything about different conditions, right? We eat less and we exercise more. Eat less, exercise more. That's kind of how we do that. For finances, generally, we spend more and I'm sorry, try that again. We spend less and we
Yeah.
save more, or we earn more, right? I mean, it's not rocket science. So, to your point, how do we protect against inflation? Well, we need to put it in a place that's actually keeping up with inflation. Again, putting it under your mattress, having cold hard cash under your mattress, tens of thousands of dollars when you're in debt does not really do you any good, right? Put it in a place that it's actually going to gain some. There are protections that we need to make sure of, right? So don't put everything in the market or something like that could go away the next day. So be smart with it, but also don't just have it sitting there doing nothing, right? If your money is not working for you, you are losing money. That sounds really harsh, but I think it's really, really true. If your money is sitting there doing nothing, you are losing money slowly. So just that in and of itself, be aware of that, put it in a way that put it in a form that can gain money. And the other one is just the reality of we are in an economy at this point that most Americans have to have some type of secondary income. That's just the reality, unfortunately, because things are so expensive at this point, whether we like it or not, unless you've got a really plush job, most people are having to do some side gig stuff or some secondary work to help things, to help help ends meet and this kind of stuff. So that's the other thing that I love about this financial GPS is there is an opportunity for people like myself and others that just like to share good things, that you can be compensated to share this idea with other people. So not that that's the only way, but that is one way that I love, because I know that what I'm doing is good work, and I know and I can see in my clients' eyes and my customers' eyes what it's doing for their future and what it's doing for their stress level. So why not share something that's going to benefit them that can also benefit you. So I would say don't sleep on the fact that you're probably going to need a secondary income. Find something that fits your speed and something that does good in the world, which I think this one does as well.
Yeah, that's super cool because it's almost like you're talking about technology that gives us instant gratification on what that stability could look like in the future. And that's
Mhm.
very peaceful, thinking about for anybody that's especially anxious about money
Mhm.
and thinking
Yeah.
about a side hustle. And is there some piece of technology that can kind of harmonize that for us? And
Yeah.
it sounds like that GPS system might be some tech that's worth looking into. So how do you work with that? Is that you're saying that there's a opportunity for individuals to take that and almost use it as a side income and they get
Absolutely.
involved in
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Can you tell us
It's
a
an
little bit more about
agency. Yeah, it's an agency model. So people think of like Keller Williams, think of like insurance agency.
that? Mhm.
There are teams. You can build a team. You can kind of do it on your own. So it kind of works both ways. But it really is just there's two levels of income on it. You can be an affiliate, which just means you're sharing the idea of this. You have your own little URL that kind of funnels people to the right thing. And then an agent, which is what I'm doing, actually takes care of all of the conversation, goes through debt analysis, walks them through the process, figure out if it's a good fit. And then if through that process it is a good fit and it can help them, there is compensation that is made just by the affiliate up to like $500, which is, in my estimation, pretty considerable, thinking that that's only for a referral aspect of things, right? So
Wow.
Connie said, hey, my friend has some student loan debt and a mortgage. Would you mind talking to her? Absolutely no problem. We have this conversation. If my conversation with Connie's friend turns into them purchasing the financial GPS, Connie gets $500. Her friend gets tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings, half of her mortgage cut in half, and then everybody wins. So that's kind of that's the simplified way, but it really does work just like that. The agent model is just a little bit more active, where you're talking to people, you're running numbers. The compensation on that is obviously more profound, just because you're doing a little bit more work. But either of those are phenomenal and very real. Just for a side note here, the company is based in the United States. I know people start thinking, oh, technology, this, is it legit? It's been around for 20 years, A+ Better Business Bureau rating. So it's been very, very established, very highly rated on Trustpilot. So it's really good people that you're working with as well, just for whatever that's worth.
And that's really important to me, Andy, because I talk about, how do we make technology more, we use the word trauma informed, because when you solve for the least sophisticated person, and what I think I'm hearing you say is you have this opportunity to kind of have a roadmap of where you're going based on where
Mhm.
you are today.
Yep.
And that's a reassuring, map that you use to kind of GPS global position yourself in your financial future.
Right.
And it's the ability to be used by anybody. So that means that it could be considered trauma informed. It could be considered for the lower sophisticated person who might not really like tech, may not
Right.
like their digital banking app, and
Right.
may still need help for like kind of that map. Could be a great tool, it sounds like, for people that are working with clients for budgets or financial literacy counseling or what have you as
Right.
well. So
Absolutely.
there's a lot of sounds like a lot of use cases here. So I'm glad that you're here to share that with us.
Absolutely. Happy
Um,
to.
what do you see in the future for teaching about financial technology? And I'll tell you why. Here in Florida, we have a financial literacy mandate, and it's an unfunded mandate, but there
Mhm.
is a number of principles kind of in that mandate where
Mhm.
we're looking at how do we teach present form of money in financial systems that are changing while
Mhm.
they're changing.
Right.
And they're literally changing from a technological route, like the blockchain and cryptocurrencies and digital assets and stable coins. And there's kids that are seeing this in live, real time experience with the apps that their parents are giving them, are starting to talk about you can buy Bitcoin, you can buy XRP, you can buy these other forms of currency, and you're switching them out. But how do we teach kids in that generation, in that timeline of things like this that are so dynamically happening?
That is a big question, and so I want to
I
think
just
about
want
it a
to get your
little bit. So I
perspective on
make sure that
it.
I,
Yeah, just
um,
a little bit from it, because you said you were a teacher, right?
and that's actually where I was going. Is like, as a teacher, I feel like I have, it is my duty to answer that question very,
Please.
very thoughtfully, because um, I unfortunately I do see this a lot, especially with I'm mid 40s at this point, so definitely in my generation, but definitely in generations a little bit older than me, things that people don't understand. Well, we'll say teachers, right?
Uh-huh.
Aspects that teachers don't understand. Unfortunately, once they get to the point where, like, hey, I'm about to clock out or whatever, or that's scary, or that's something that I don't know about, rather than leaning in and digging into that and finding out what it is, so we can empower future generations, which is what we should be doing as teachers. What do? I don't know about it. I'm going to bury my head in the sand and I'll let somebody else think about it. So shame on all of us that think that we can just bury our head and pretend like this is not happening, because I know Connie has talked about this a lot to listeners and in lots of different episodes. The future is blockchain. The future is this new way of doing money that is not even landed and has not even settled as to what it looks like right now. But we do see the trends and see where things are going. Government is looking into blockchain, so that should be your sign that this is not something that's going away. So to your question, how do you teach that? It's hard because it's a moving target. And I think that's probably the part that for educators, that's difficult because we are juggling so many balls of like, hey, we have to do English, we have to do math, we have to do science, right? There's mandates for this, there's testing for that. This is, to your point, and I giggled when you said it's unfunded. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is such an education thing to do, right? Hey, do this stuff, do all this stuff, but we're not going to give you any money to support that. So boo on folks about that, but that is a reality of what we're doing. So it is, unfortunately, yes, you need to teach it, but we're not going to give you funding to do it. And you probably have to figure out what your resources are to do on that as well. So I think it is incumbent on your, people like yourself, thought leaders, which is what I'm hoping to be or associated with, if nothing else, to take it upon ourselves of like, okay, where are the trends going? What are we going to do about that? How can we package this in a way and then deliver it to teachers that are not very tech savvy, that are maybe a little bit nervous about this? They don't want to dive into that. So how can we kind of spoon feed this to teachers that are maybe not very tech savvy, because it's not really about them. It's about the kids learning about what this is and at least being exposed to it, right? You don't need to know every single type of cryptocurrency out there, but you do need to know what the basics are of blockchain, how it works, what this is, what this possibly looks like in the future. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think it's on us as thought leaders to kind of create that curriculum, for lack of a better term, or that learning aspect, and then deliver it to the people that are maybe a little bit more hesitant. I think that's probably what it's going to look like.
Yeah, Andy, and I am so glad that you brought that up because, one, you're echoing sentiments from instructors at the high school, excuse me, middle school, and even college level, community college. Excuse me, they don't even have the curriculum. Their curriculum, it needs to be modernized, and that's the verbiage that they use. So my textbooks don't have any of this in that. And how long is it going to be until the textbooks? And I did have some interviews with higher ed kind of thought leaders and executives. They're saying until it comes down from DC into the state and into, the local level or our vendor level, when all that stuff gets ushered in, then there's going to be a period of time where the instructors have to on-ramp themselves to it. So that's the intersection point that I've actually decided to help with, is
Right.
because I've got such a rich background in TradFi, 30 years building systems and doing the educational things of, hey, what's a check card? What's a debit card? What's Apple Pay? I've had to simplify some of this technology for people to learn how to use it and what's in it for them when they do learn. And
Yeah.
that's where I think we can help the teachers, current teachers, get more comfortable, is
Mhm.
by a train the trainer type of a program. And
Absolutely.
so that's where, at least in my community, I was just talking with Lavinia Osborne, who's the founder of Women in Blockchain Talks, an organization that's coming into the US from the UK. And
Mhm.
she has done a tremendous amount of service to the community of teachers over in Europe, where this really started with Web3 and blockchain. And, she's all about the path that we're taking here in the US to bring the Women in Blockchain Talks brand over and talk about, how do we teach everyone? How do we
Yeah.
break this down, to your point, the ABCs of blockchain?
Mhm.
And there's some really cool projects that are starting to do that. So I want to just encourage you that help is coming.
Great.
We have a lot of individuals that are really passionate about making sure that we get some of these fundamentals out to the community teachers and help lift them up, because it's a big load. It's a
Right.
big load for
It
the
is.
teachers, and they have a hard job already.
Yeah,
So,
I know you do. And I mean, as someone that has been in schools and also with my current technology company, we do curriculum work as well. Um, it made me giggle because you said, educators are like, well, when we get the textbooks, like, oh goodness gracious, where do we start on that? People, it moves faster. We can't rely on the next textbook to be printed because things are changing so rapidly. We need to adapt how we learn. And I think COVID, for all of its, awful things, I'm not talking about the actual pandemic itself, but just for the impact that it had on education. Yes, it was traumatic. Yes, it was difficult. And were educators and the education system prepared for that? Absolutely not. However, it thrust us into this reality of, there is a place for online learning. There is a place for virtual learning. Is it ever, in my estimation, going to replace face-to-face? I think not. I really don't. I think, AI is great and that can enhance things. Face-to-face, heart-to-heart connection is always going to trump that. That's my own personal feeling on this, but I think that so yes, you are correct. There's a lot of hurdles that you and we have in front of us trying to get this to kids for them to learn, and a lot of that is just kind of battling this idea of like, well, we have to have a textbook to be able to teach from. That's the first problem, because it's going to be changing so rapidly that we need to have a little bit more of a dynamic way to deliver curriculum. How are students receiving information? How do we make this engaging? I mean, the name of my company, which we're not talking about right now, is Interactive Learning, right? We have to make learning interactive. We always had to do that, but even more so with this micro attention span that students have right now. So lots of challenges, but I applaud you for all of the work that you're doing on it, because it is very much needed.
Thank you, Andy. I do want to talk about your interactive learning company
Ah,
because, that leans into the metaverse and the blockchain and where you're immersed. I use the word immersion a lot, way
yeah.
more than I did in my TradFi world, where it was
Mhm.
very transactional in nature.
Yeah.
And now with DeFi and where we're headed with Web3, it's community. It's building a community so that the tech can come into the community and activate economic activity. And then we
Mhm.
can prove and measure and in a mutable way, in a transparent way, show proof of that economic activity on chain, right?
Yep.
That's where we're going. And
Yep.
so I do want to talk about your interactive because
Mhm.
let's talk about the principles of interactive learning, knowing that we're leaning into this world. What do you think? What do you see coming?
Oh my goodness. I'm not sure I'm the expert that you would need in this space. I mean, our work with interactive learning has been 20 plus years, more focused on hardware, kind of helping develop curriculum for JROTC and different things like this. Um, I don't know if I can enter the sphere of the thought leader as far as how things are moving forward in that space of blockchain and that kind of stuff. I know it's necessary, kind of to my previous point. We need to partner with people that are much more knowledgeable in that, um, and help them to make that a reality. I think that the delivery of that, I guess that would be one piece that I could speak somewhat on, is what does the delivery of that look like? I kind of alluded to the fact in the past, it's not a textbook, right? It's not a textbook. Students learn on their phone. They learn on the fly. They need to be able to access this at home. So how can we make a learning platform that allows them to learn in the class, outside the class, have teachers be able to readily and easily be able to provide feedback? Is that AI assisted? Possibly. There's just a lot of more advanced learning platforms that I think education needs to lean into, because this is the reality of where we're going, right? Education is not going to always be just in a classroom. It needs to go outside the classroom. This idea of not only asynchronous learning, but this like hybrid learning, I think, is a reality. And then finding things that will allow, I'm a big believer in video. I think, again, reading is important. I'm not saying it's not, but if I can have a video that encapsulates what it is that we're trying to teach, and they can see how the things are moving on the blockchain, I think that's really important. And we can leverage AI to be able to generate some of that stuff now as well. So again, I apologize that I'm not the expert in that space, but I think that's, in my estimation, those are some little things that I'm aware of that I know would make a big difference.
Yeah, and Andy, you know what? I think there's a lot of thoughts percolating around this topic, and it's the collective collaboration that's really
Yes.
needed to get
Yep.
individuals like yourself who has a piece, right? I understand the piece of deploying interactive learning into the community. That's what I hear you saying.
Correct.
However, how I structurally design that for the different learning styles is another piece. And there was
Mhm.
an individual that I ran into. She's a substitute teacher,
Mhm.
amazing lady, at an entrepreneur gathering of all
Okay.
places. And the entrepreneurial place is a lot of immersing, figuring out what a problem is, and then creating something to solve it. And you're putting yourself in all of these different roles. It's a
Right.
very different world than a corporate employee or a government employee. We're kind of, working in a system that's already
Mhm.
been created for you.
Right.
And the thought process is kind of, done for you, where entrepreneur, you're like in the wild with no, map, no territory. It's kind of like
Yep.
Wild West until you figure out what your niche is based on who
Yep.
you want to serve. And the students are learning this though. And she was talking to me about this entrepreneur. mindset that's coming into a lot of the schools because the kids want real hands-on experience with real world problems. And
Right.
who can blame them? There's a lot going on that they're looking around seeing. But one of the things she shared with me is that the executive function, that part of being able to make the plan, to execute on the plan,
Mhm.
is being impacted by technology.
Wow.
And the
Yeah.
ability to break down how I'm going to attack a problem and actually use my executive function in my cognitive processes has been influenced and impacted by technology.
I
What do
agree.
you what is that what comes up for you when you hear that?
I mean, my mind automatically goes to just the blessing and curse of AI. I mean, it's just it is. I often talk about in the realm of technology that people that are trying to avoid technology or pretend it's not there. We already talked about the ostrich bearing its head, but I envision it as someone standing, 2 or 3 feet into where the waves are breaking, and they're just like trying to resist it. They're trying to block the waves. I'm like, good luck with that. You're just going to get pummeled, right? So you're not going to stop you're not going to stop technology innovation. You're just not, right? So you have the choice in this space. If you are playing in this space where you're an educator, you're a thought leader, you are one that's wanting to make an impact, don't avoid it. Ride the wave, right? How can we leverage what it is that we have at this point? And again, having this conversation today compared to what it would have been 6 months ago or 2 years ago is vastly different, right? The emergence of AI and how it's day to day just growing and just getting so much more powerful. That is the reality. Is it going to turn into Skynet? I pray not, right? But at this point, what can we do to leverage the ability that we have right now to um, achieve the gains that we're going for, achieve the learning possibilities or um, the curriculum or all of the things that we talked about. I guess on the flip side of things, the negative side, right? I am aware of and very concerned, less so about AI taking over the world and more about what is it doing to the cognitive functions and the critical thinking, right? For the last 10 to 20 years, right? We've been pushing critical thinking, collaboration, this kind of stuff. It is a tool. Yes, leverage it. Yes, use it to expedite things, kind of brainstorm some different things. That's a fantastic way of using AI. Don't allow it to be your brains, right? Don't just dump into it and then just regurgitate whatever AI. Like use it as a tool to be able to enhance and speed up some of your learning process. Don't get over reliant on AI to the point where you're not doing your own thinking. That is something I am concerned about.
I echo that, and I think that that's at the heart of, so many communities that sit outside of the technology reach, right? They don't have a phone that has the Wi-Fi. They don't have the
Mm,
budget for the AI tools. Some of them are learning it, but some of them, and a lot of them are in, individuals are in these disadvantaged communities with, 2 and 3 jobs trying to keep ends meet, and they don't
mhm,
have time to stop and learn about some of the new things. So that's where the economic development and job development and all the things are happening at the community level to really
mhm.
expose them to some of these mini boot camps and some of these mini
Right.
workshops.
Yeah.
That is a whole different side of the cognitive where that processing capacity of can I even take in more information while I'm in survival mode
Mhm.
is a whole different conversation. I
Uh-huh.
can't make space for it when
Yeah.
I'm in survival mode trying to keep the roof over my head, let alone keep up with might be happening who everybody who has time to sit and scroll on their phone and experiment with all these AI tools
Mm.
has time to do. So we've
Yeah.
got two different spectrums here. And how do we harmonize the journey for
Yeah.
individuals that are on either side of the spectrum?
Yeah. That is a challenge for sure. I will say that I have not had opportunity or been really in the space of working specifically with people in challenging situations. My hats off to them. A good friend of mine that I bought this company from works with homeless in Denver, like the unhoused in Denver, and I applaud. It is such there's so much. There's such a dynamic about that, right? I mean, we don't have to go into all that, but I mean, you kind of even talked about that. There's the emotional aspect, there's the belief aspect, there's the um, um, shame aspect, right? Like, are they fitting in? Are they being accepted? Right? I again, I applaud everybody that is in that space. That is a level of complexity and challenges that I don't have a lot to speak on, but I'm glad that there are people that are working on that.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it too, Andy, is that, you said, I've got this piece. I can do, things with what I have as far as my
Right.
financial GPS technology. I'm
Right.
doing things that I can do with families there. You've got the, interactive learning platform, which you're doing. Obviously, you're making, inroads for organizations to move
Right.
education into certain communities. And that's, we applaud you for that. Everybody has a piece to play.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
think you also challenged the AI side of it to where it's like, guys, we are still humans that are
Mhm.
educating one another. Without humans, there are no technology advancements, right? We're the ones that are bringing the creativity and the
Mhm.
innovation to
Yeah.
the tool that technology has become, whether
Yeah.
it's moving money, moving supply chains, or, teaching individuals. It still comes from that human to human contact and
Mhm.
knowing that that's happening. And that to me is the root of commerce. In the
Mhm.
old days of our commerce marketplaces and our trading posts, there was different forms of money back then. There was
Right.
commodities that were traded.
Yeah.
And this concept of interest, which I'm so glad you brought up at the beginning,
Mhm.
how do we flip? How do you teach the family to flip that interest into into an asset for them? 'Cause I'm sure that's part of your
Mhm.
story and narrative and the way that you teach them
Yeah.
is to help them really accelerate the strategy to help them collectively save interest from interest being an enemy of theirs to
Right.
becoming a friend of theirs.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a deep question, so I'll do my best to kind of condense it. But um, it does start with having a roadmap. Where are you going? What are you doing? And then again, another clarification, just back to the GPS aspect, because people get very everybody, right? Everybody gets a little bit antsy and a little bit nervous when it talks about moving money and this kind of stuff. Thinking GPS, as far as what it is that I'm talking about, your GPS never reaches over, grabs the steering wheel, and turns for you, right? That's not what it does, right? It's just going to inform you, hey, if you want to stay on track to be at your destination as quickly as possible, now is a time to make a strategic transfer, exact this down to a penny on this date to this thing to pay this down to save the most interest, right? It's going to say that if you miss that, it's going to say, hey, next off ramp, get off. It's going to be a little bit more, but you're still going to be on the most efficient route. So just as a clarification point there.
I
So
think that's powerful because you're talking about going from this victim mentality that some people say, "Oh, the system did this to me," or
mhm,
"Money's so invisible that I didn't see that fee come
yeah,
out of my account," and now it's an overdraft situation and it's just
yeah,
completely exploded and
mhm,
exacerbated itself.
yeah.
You're saying you've got technology that helps them make more empowered choices.
Absolutely, right? So, and empowered is one of my favorite words. I've got the Empower Wealth Solutions, which is the company that I do all my financial work with. I've got a podcast called Empowered Learning. So, yes, empowerment is a huge mission and drive for me. And to your point, it does. This idea of financial GPS does empower you to make the best financial decisions for your future, right? And you can, and that's the other thing that I love about this. You can, I mentioned that at the beginning, right? If you want to go through a trip to Disneyland before you get debt free, that's fine. If you want to buy that new car, that's fine. If you want to buy that new phone, it's completely up to you, right? We're not steering the car. We're just saying the choice that you're making right now, what you're investing. There's another thing called true cost, which I think is brilliant, right? If you want to put this on a card, it's great, okay? But we can hit a little button that says true cost and it says, okay, here's what the cost is, right? If you're putting it on credit, it's going to be a little bit more. But by not using this $1,000, $2,000 towards your debt, it actually ends up costing you $3,000, $4,000 because now you don't have that ability to pay things down. So it's a matter of being informed, right? Informing you to make empowered decisions is what it's all about.
And I think that's the ultimate map, Andy. So thank you for coming on here today and showing us a little
Absolutely.
bit more about your heart, your why,
Mm.
and you're talking about the how so we can all
Yeah.
investigate. So how do people find you? Tell us a little bit more about how they connect with you. Where do they find you? We can put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
And
exactly. So I know that some people are just listening. So the easiest way to find me is empowerwealth.solutions. Empowerwealth.solutions. There's a get connected button right at the very, very top. Um, has my contact information on there. I love to meet with people virtually so we can hop on a real quick Zoom and just have a quick chat. Where are you at? What are your goals? What are you wanting to do? I will tell you right now, the financial GPS is not a good fit for everybody. but it is a fit for a lot of people, right? So we can have just a very low key, get to know conversation, figure out where you're at. And then I will do my level best, because I care about people, to give you at least something, right? Whether that's a high yield savings account that I would recommend, or an investment strategy. Again, I do this this is the experience that I have. I'm not licensed as a financial advisor. I'm just saying this is what has worked very, very well for me. So I'm speaking from my personal perspective on that, but would be honored to have conversations with anybody that is interested to hear. And I guess if you feel like you are in a spot where you have resigned to the fact that you're going to be in debt the rest of your life, schedule some time and let's have a conversation, because I'm pretty sure we can find a way out of that, where we can get you going on that path to where it's not 30 years, maybe it's 15 years, maybe it's 10 years, right? And then we start adding a little bit of extra income. Maybe we can shave that down to 7, right? So it's all a matter of working smarter, not harder, and using some tools and empowering your decision. So I would be honored to have conversations with folks.
Awesome. And Andy, what if so I know a lot of people in my community are, their side hustle already, or they're trying to do something with what they care about, purpose to passion, right?
Hmm?
Or to profit. And from that purpose side where they said, I want to, help individuals with budgeting, or I want to be like there's financial social workers, and there's financial
Mm,
literacy teachers and coaches.
yeah.
There's a lot of them in the small business communities on Facebook, for example, that I communicate with. How do they get to learn a little bit more about this GPS as an affiliate?
Absolutely. So I mean, all of the sides, right? I would love to talk to folks that could be potential clients that they're in debt, they're wanting to get out of debt, build wealth. I didn't pause for just a second here, because I do want to share this. You would ask specifically, like, how can we build assets and build wealth with this kind of stuff? Obviously, the faster you're paying things down, the more you can put money into that. Another one of the numbers that we give in this analysis report is, say, hey, we're saving 20 years on this mortgage. What if you put everything that you were putting to service your debt towards investments, and we can only legally show a 1% return, which we know is ridiculous. We can put that in like a 5 or 10% return, but it's often in the millions of dollars, which is just crazy when you're thinking like, oh, I'm just going to be getting out of debt in 30 years. What if we could pay that off in 10 and then build wealth up to the point where, when you would have been paying things off, you're now have $1 million in your bank because you use your money smarter. So I had to take that opportunity to say that, because it is so much more than just getting out of debt. It is transferring debt into wealth and then using that money smarter. So just for that, to your question about the affiliate and agent, I'm excited to talk to clients. I am very, very passionate also about building a team. I need to find other people, to your point, that are in this space, having these conversations with folks of like, hey, I really want to buy this house. We just don't have enough money to do that. Those are great conversations to have. And again, I hope that after an hour of hearing me talk here, I am not a pushy guy. I am all about information. I am the messenger, not the message. I will just deliver, like, this is what it is that we can do for you. And if it's a good fit, we have a conversation, we move forward. And if not, again, we give you a couple tidbits and we wish you, the best. So if you are listening to this, or your colleagues are doing side hustles, side businesses, and this kind of stuff in the space of trying to help people with their finances, literacy, helping them with mortgages, helping them with debt reduction, anything like that, I welcome a conversation with that, because it is such an easy parlay from the work that you're already doing, right? You're already talking to people about wanting to buy a house. Say, hey, this is great, but what if we, in addition to this, once we find this awesome house for you, what if we could pay this down in half the time and save you $100,000? Wouldn't that be worth a conversation, right? So those are definitely people that I'm looking forward to talking to. And the other really cool thing about our company is there's no limits or territories, anything in the United States we can talk to. So I mentioned right before we got on here, I'm going to Orlando tomorrow for a big conference with like-minded folks. So we are looking to build a massive team. We've saved our clients almost $3 billion in interest over the last 20 years. So we are marching towards $5 and then $10 billion. We're working hard to take back the American family, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's so empowering to do that. And just the peace and the harmony on the inside that they feel when they get that clarity. I know what happens when you can get clarity on how you're believing about and feeling about certain things. So let alone the money's the other side of the coin there. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Andy. And thanks for coming on the show to talk to me today.
your
Thanks for
mission
the
and where your heart's coming from. So we're glad to
I
see you.
appreciate it. Thank you,
All
Connie.
right. Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Unlocking Commerce and Business. If this conversation resonated, here's what you can do. Subscribe for weekly conversations with survivors, innovators, and changemakers, building regenerative alternatives to extractive commerce. Share this episode with collaborators, partners, funders, and changemakers in your network. The people ready for restorative commerce need to hear these voices. Drop a comment below. Tell us what patterns you're recognizing or what solutions you're building. We read every one. Commerce is everywhere, and healing extraction patterns inside our communities creates regenerative commerce outside. Like a lighthouse, we're here, exploring and cutting through fog, pointing toward what works. Welcome to the era of restorative commerce. Until next time, explore courageously, build sovereignly. You are the source and store of value. This is Connie Davis signing off. Thank you for being here.